Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I will hold off actually starting doing anything for a minute or so whilst I just sort out my phone, because that's always a good move and it allows me to share that to my own page, which is even better. I'll pop that there. Dispose of my glasses because I don't need those for crafting, and wait for a few people to come in. If those of you that are coming in could, or at least one of you, could let me know that you can hear me and see me, that would be fantastic. Thank you, Faith, for joining me this evening. Hi, Jan. Thank you for joining me this evening. It's much appreciated. Numbers are climbing, so that's cool. It's probably only, the messages are all coming through saying just before 6 o'clock. Thank you, Barbara, for joining us from Hungary. Thank you, Jan, for letting me know that all is well. And also Lorraine and Sheila, welcome. And hello, Esther, I think it is. So, for those that you haven't met me before, I'm Gill and I'm one of the Pentacolor Creatives. I'm a very lucky young lady. So let's just do a little bit of shenanigans. That would be better, won't it? Then you can see who I am and what we're about to. Hi, Joan. Currently, it is dry in Manchester. It wasn't a few minutes ago, so I'm rather hoping it's going to stay dry whilst we do this. And I may have bitten off more than I can chew this evening, but hey ho. Hi, Selena. Hi, Juliana. So I thought, just because why wouldn't you, that we'd make a pair of canvases this evening using Vintage Library, because why wouldn't you make life easy for yourself? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's sort of where we're going, and I've got some bits laid out. So just let me concertina this lot down, and I've got some other bits sort of prepared anyway. But there we are. Let's tuck that lot all together out of harm's way of paint and paste on one side, and we'll pop that lot out of harm's way. I love the Vintage Library collection. It's stunning. I like anything that's vintage, and I like books. So I have a pair of canvases here that are approximately 4 inches by 12 inches. So tall and slim, but by simply reading these in a different, it's slightly further apart, or adding a few bits, these will be relatively easy to adapt to canvases that are a bit bigger, but it is a format that works better for tall and slim pathway processes. So let's pop that out of the way and grab some bits. So I'm going to start by adding some stenciling, and this is a background stencil that coordinates with the collection, because that, why wouldn't I do that? Let me just move that before I knock something off that I don't want to. And of course it's available from Pentacolor. So there we are, and I am using modelling paste, and deliberately using modelling paste rather than modelling paste light. And I did get out a second pot just in case I needed it, but maybe we won't, which would be even cooler. And I have this big spatula here, so we're going to add some stenciling using this. It doesn't have to be terribly precise, and we don't need it every which way, because a lot of this will get covered. but this is sort of quite a useful way of thinking. So I've got an S there, a little bit there, and I want to add a little bit now towards the bottom of here. Let me just pop that down, line it up so it's reasonably straight, and add some of that into there, so that I've got some interest along the bottom of my canvas long term. So there we are, just some bits of stenciling. A lot of that will get covered, so it's not such an important. That's probably, Sarah, because I move things, and we're just going to repeat the other project. And this is one of the reasons why I can be fairly prolific in the amount that I post. It is because I'm able to double up with what I'm doing with my makes. So there we are. So there we are. Right, did I bring in a cloth pot to put that in? No, I did not. Bad me. So there we are. We'll just pop that out of the way. We'll grab a wet wipe and we'll just wrap this. Hello, Anthony. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm just going to pop my stencil onto the floor with a wet wipe underneath it to protect it, and so it doesn't set too solidly. Good evening, Jill. And then that will at least be protected until I can get to it to clean it. So that can go out of harm's way. That can go down there, and I am going to set those aside, but I will end up heat drying them, I'm fairly sure. So we'll pop those out of the way, and then we have some bits and pieces. So there are a couple of molds that go with the Vintage Library collection, and I cast from the book plates with some white resin these pieces, and then I have coated them with bonding primer, which is best left to dry thoroughly before you do anything else. You could just as easily use some white primer paste to do that, but my preference was to do that. And I have chosen, because they work with the collection, Bourdon, which is a dark red colour, an indigo blue, and ivory as my colour palette book plates. And I've got them separated out into two pieces because I want them similar colour values on each of the projects so that I can display them close to each other, and them look reasonably balanced. Let me get rid of that revolting brush and find something that is less revolting. So we're going to just paint these. As I say, this one is Bourdon. It is a beautiful rich red, and it's one of my favorite colors from Pentart, and I'm using creamy acrylics for this, and I've got the bigger 100ml pots, but it does come in 50ml pots, and if you really like it you can order bigger pots as well, if your local supplier has them. So there we are. So let's just see how much of a mess we can get our hands in while we paint this lot. Could be interesting. Could be interesting. We've got not so much painting for today, to be fair. It is not quite a pure paper craft project, but it's also not a full-on mixed media project. So hopefully it's a happy balance between the two modalities, and that people will enjoy what we're doing. It's just a gorgeous rich colour. I think if you like the indigo, will also oops, she says, missing a piece of that. Almost undoubtedly, you will like the Bourdon, because it is a beautiful, rich dark red. I'm not a great drinker of wine, but I think it probably looks a bit like the colour of Bordeaux wine. No idea where they chose the name from or what inspired the name, but there we are. So that is just lid a Bordeaux from that point of view. There we are. I'll get rid of that. Give that a good wash with the baby wipe. So the next colour that I've chosen to work with this collection is the indigo blue. Try to keep my hands reasonably tight and clean, because when we photograph for our creative team makes, they like clean pots. What a surprise there. I've no idea what's going on because I'm streaming without a problem, so hopefully it is at your end, not mine. It's very difficult, isn't it? We've got reasonable, she says. No, I won't tempt fate, because knowing me and technology, something will go wrong. So we'll just leave it at that. There we are. And let's do this one. Possibly, but it's actually nice. It's actually nice here at the moment. Lorraine, it's sunny, it's dry. Unlike last night when I was live, when the heavens decided to open, and it sounded as if some jolly great big animals were doing a dance on my conservatory roof, even though it was just the rain falling. It did lash it down, it has to be said. There we are. Okay. Yes, Sarah, I hope so. It's not great, is it, when there's lots of storms around? Oh. I would quite like it to be nice tomorrow, because I really don't fancy a 3-hour drive to see a friend with it lashing it down. Because whenever it does that, your visibility in the car is never as great, is it, as when it's dry, even with your windscreen wipers going. That one can go in there, because if I go anywhere near my beautiful ivory paint with anything other than that, I will have it completely contaminated, and that's really not what I want to do. And I am trying desperately to stay nice and clean tonight, because I just think it's nicer. Let's get rid of that and pick up a clean, we'll go with a clean manky looking brush. But so this is the ivory. Let me lid the indigo before we mix the lids up, because that wouldn't work very well either. And so let's pop these over to here. What I'm doing is I thought I would get the painty bits out of the way up front, and that way we've I can then set about drying these and doing some of the other bits and pieces that I want to do. That sort of makes sense in my world of madness. I mean, it might not make sense in your world of madness, but it certainly does make sense in my world. And try not to splatter the ivory onto the darker pieces. There we are. So let us lid those and pop that one in the wash and wipe my hands. I am just going to give those a little bit of a blast dry, because otherwise, and excuse the noise, because having had 2 of the quieter heat guns blow up on me in the last few weeks, I've abandoned buying those. A noisier heat gun. in the hope that it perseveres and I don't have a problem. Good evening, Maxine. Thank you for joining us this evening. I hope all is well in the world, or well in your world. I'm just going to give them these a dry because I can move them out of the way, and then I'm going to do some bits with some of the pigment fix. But if I don't do this, it will have so many wet bits on the go. I'll not. I can guarantee I'll end up with stuff that I don't want getting dirty and covered in paint, getting covered in it, which isn't helpful, really. I'm just going to put my hands there because I can see these bits about to go flying around my room, and I really don't want to go chasing pieces of paper during the middle of a live, and I need all of those bits for my composition. So I hope you can see that actually the matte acrylic paints gives great coverage with literally just one coat, which makes them good value for money. And of course, if you're covering something that's really dark on something really pale, then it's going to show through very easily if you don't have lots of pigments in them. So I know that those aren't going to be completely dry, and that is absolutely fine. Well, we'll just pop those over the way and they can finish off, and we can always give them a little blast later on anyway. So there we are. I do like mixing and matching. So I have, this is one of the decorative chips that come with the collection. Excuse me, I can hear myself. Let's get rid of that completely. From one pack, and the owls come from a different pack. And I thought we would decorate those. You do have to be careful. They are quite thin. And if you slop lots of liquid on them, then you will find yourself in trouble. So I'm going to use Pigment Fix, which is the one of the novelties, she says. I have opened this one. Here. Well, there we are then. There we are. And I'm just going to mix it on here and then wipe up the excess. And I won't need huge quantities. And so I'm just all I'm doing is using a pipette to dispense a controlled amount of that liquid, rather than pouring and ending up with about 25 times the amount that we need. And for one of these, I'm going to use antique gold metal pigments. Again, that's one of the new colours. It's not as bright as the original gold metallic is, so that can go into there. And for the second one, and the owls, I'm actually going to use I think the copper. I think that will work better than the fire gold, which is a very ready colour. So those can go into there. We'll lid those. So a little of this will go a long way. She says dropping pigment every which way, and I can now just mix these together. So I've got a little paint, and then just pounce this onto here. So I've got these coloured, and I'm being I'm deliberately pouncing rather than brushing, because it's just that they are so fine and so beautifully delicate. If you are not careful, you will break them. There we are. So I can just make sure I've got it all covered. Does it matter if I haven't got it all covered? You can see how delicate they are. And we'll pop that one over there. And I'm going to wipe that up because it'll stick in what's there. These dry quite quickly, which is a joy. and a hindrance at the same time. It really depends on what you're wanting to do, doesn't it? So there we are. I have no idea what this says, but actually it doesn't matter because I'm using it for texture and for detail on my make. So there we are. So these are literally, I'm using it as I would a paint. So let's pop that over there. And all I did was chop this up into pieces that would work for the make that I had envisaged in my head. So you can see how, you know, quite a little bit of liquid goes a long way. And obviously, if I wasn't doing a live, I might use that. It's important with these metal pigments that you only mix up what you need, because it won't, you can't reconstitute it. So there we are. Let's just lift those off there gently. Pop that out of harm's way. And I am going to commit the heinous sin in a minute of getting rid of that lot before I put my mitts in it, because that'll be the next trick. And then we're going to mix this up, because I think the copper will work better for the owls than the gold. So there we are. And I could have used waxes, but I actually like the idea of adding in the metallic element to these makes. There we are. That can go over there. Now, the advantage of using the pigment fix is that the pigment, these are metal pigments in them, and if they're mixed with the pigment fix as opposed to other mediums, they won't oxidize over time, which is also cool. So we'll keep the true color, and that's why the pigment fix is worth getting, rather than it, you know, it's not just a sales ploy or an addition. There is a specific reason as to why that has been added to the product line. So that can go over there, and we're just going to wipe that up, because if we don't, all you'll see is a mess, and that's not very nice for, you know, for working along with. So, but they do dry very quickly. So I am going to have, yeah, so I'm deliberately using a knife blade to lift this off, because that is already set on there, and if I don't scrape it, it won't come off. But they are beautiful to work with. And remember, you can mix any pigment powder, so your micas and any other companies' pigments in with the pigment fixes to convert them into a paint. You don't just have to leave those. We'll worry about that. Here we are. The script sheet is lovely. It certainly is. There we are. So we've got those, we've got those, we've got those, we've got those. Let's just give these a bit more of a blast dry. We have some plans for those. Which way did I have that? That way and that way. There we are. So let's give those a little bit of a blast dry, because they're not completely dry yet. Okay. I'm deliberately just leaving my modelling case for as long as possible before I revert to adding some colour to my background, because it's not going to stay white long term. It's interesting, Anthony, because I went down to the store that you work in to get a new gun as an emergency, because I just needed it. And to be told by them, theirs was out of stock because there'd been a manufacturing issue. So I think there might be a problem with the Ranger one. I certainly am not impressed. The only thing I really liked about it was the fact that it was so quiet. And I think that has, you know, has some advantages. particularly when you're on a light. Excuse me for rubbing my face. I've got a hair in my eye. Bear with me while I remove that. So if I look at the papers and that ivory, there's clearly a mismatch. That ivory is far too clean to work. Not, it might be fairly well set as it is. And so there we are. Let us just grab one of these. Hi, Sarah. It's just too bright, too light for you cheeky monkey. So the ivory is too clean when we put it up against that, and that's not a look I want. So I am just going to add some of the Umbra antique paste. I know, Anthony, before you say anything, it's brown, but this will knock this back and age it and make it more in keeping with the overall look for the project that I want. So that's my rationale and my reason for doing that. And that's one of the reasons why I picked the cream, because I knew it was going to darken as I did this. And you can think, well, these are already dark enough, but having added it to some, I'm actually going to keep my project cohesive all the way through. And so I'm going to add it to all of these as well. And it will darken it and give it a richness, particularly in the depths. And then we might, we will be adding some waxes. It's no might about it. We will be. All of these steps just add a little bit more detail, a little bit more interest. They're also a great way of disguising not so accurate painting, dare I say it. And as we know, that the antique pastes are designed to lift off. You just need to be very careful, because my paint won't be solidly dry all the way through. I'm absolutely certain. But there we are. And I could add paler colours if I wanted, but I went with these rich reds, the look of an ancient, library in a stately home, really, was my thought process, if that makes any sense whatsoever for anyone. So for my brain, it certainly did. There we are. And this is when you end up sticky, icky, mucky, messy. And I regret doing this in this order. But hey ho, don't you worry, Alison. This live I've shared it to my own page, so you will be able to pick it up there at any stage. But you can also always go back to Pentart's page, and it will be there for you to see. When is it? Anthony. Well, I know that's what you were thinking. Your lovely friend is live at the same time, I think, tonight on Funky Fossil's page for the first time. Or was that last night? I think that might have been last night she did live. It could be tonight. Anyway, it's what it is. So there we are. So we'll just add these. And there's adding brown for reason. And there's adding it just for the sake of adding it. Because I want these to look like they're ancient books and ancient embellishments, and the brown will do that. The project I did last night used lots of Pentart products, and there was not a bit of brown in sight. But of course, you weren't live. You were busy then, so you didn't see it. But it was one where I didn't actually go anywhere near any brown, which is all cool. Right, look, she says, let's pop that into there. Let's lid that. Let's de-sticky, yucky, mucky miss my... Well, she should be live on a Thursday, shouldn't she? I'm not sure that I saw that she was, but she normally goes live on a Thursday night, so maybe. There we are. I'm going to wipe back a bit more of that. I just think it's there we are, and we can carry on. Just take off a little bit more, and then I'll end up with sticky mucky hands again, but hey ho, why? Yeah, right, so that's going that way, that's going that way, that's going that way. I think no, we'll do that way and that way. And now I have some gold wax, and this is a very well loved pot, as you can see from the fact that I'm going to have to dig into here, and this will just bring out all of the lovely details in that mould and look like the tooling on leather books. Well, that's the plan. Cool. There we are. And remember, you're in control of how much of this you put on. It's entirely up to you, and you don't have to do any of these steps if you don't want to. But for me, I just wanted to add, to highlight all of the detail in all of these pieces. Just think they're beautiful. There is, within the plate, there are two taller moulds, but they just too big for the sizes of the canvases. I didn't feel that they worked, which is why I've chosen the ones I have. There we are. Cool. So, sticky, icky, yucky. So those can go over there. Let's just tuck that lot that way. That lot that way. Look, she says. That lot that way. De-wax the fingers because they're filthy. And grab, without making them dirty, some frames. I know they're not. I need to move those further out of the way. So let's just lift that out of the way. Otherwise, these aren't going to be in screen for you. And there's no point in me doing a live with everything off screen. You need to be able to see what's going on. So at the moment, I have my stenciling on here, and it's not quite dry, but it's not far off. So let me just give these a little wash. To get these dry, and then you can prepare the background, and then hopefully you'll be able to see the there we are. We'll turn that down a speed. That might be a little bit quieter. Okay, so you can see that, yeah, so that just definitely does need a bit more of a dry over there. And if you're not careful when you're heat drying the modelling paste, it will bubble. So just be aware of that and keep your heat gun moving so that you don't end up with bubbling, or just accept, if you do, that that's what you've got, the choice to use. Helen, I am making 2 companion canvases that are 4 inches by 12 inches using Vintage Library. And I think it's not showing wonderfully well at this distance, but on the canvases, I've added some stenciling with one of the stencils that goes with the collection, and the modelling paste. Right. So, I have antique gold and white coffee. Now, the white coffee medium mist is a chalky colour, and the antique gold has mica in it. And you can hear in the mica one, I think, well, I certainly can, there's a ball in it. Now I am not going to spray these. I want this to be a little bit more controlled. I do also have some blue on the side, but I'm not too sure whether I'm going to add that. So let us just add, and just because it says that it is a spray does not mean it has to be used as a spray, of course, because there isn't a right and there isn't a wrong. And I wanted some contrast, and I'm just going to give that a little bit of a spray, which will soften the colours down a bit and allow them to mix. And I'm going to repeat on the other side, because as I say, I want these canvases to work as companion pieces together. So we're just going to add some layers and some colour into these, but I'm not going for a whole surface cover. So it's a no skills painting activity, and you can paint the sides as you want to. These are very pigment rich, which is a joy, because it means that they go a long way, and it also means that you can fade them out as you want to. So I'll have some runs and some colours into my pieces. So I think I do want some blue. So let me add, and it's going to mix with that. So this is ocean blue, which is not, it's a bit of a bright blue. Most of the, but I think it's going to work quite well by the time it's all mixed together with the pieces. So as I say, we are going to spritz and we will soften it down anyway, and it's going to mix to give it me some green tones, which again I think will work quite nicely with the overall piece. So let me just do this, lid that. I think most of you will not be used to me using medium mist eye at all, and this is just going to give me some detail, some mixing, just a little bit of interest in the background, not for control freaks, because there isn't any way that you can have these completely controlled. I've got more colour in places than perhaps I want, and that is equally fine, because I don't want it all to be coloured, so I can pick off what I don't want. There we are. And then let's just add some of this antique gold into the mix as well, because this is going to add a little bit of zing, but also it's going to mute these colours down so that they are more in keeping with the overall project look, because the papers are definitely not the brights. And this is where it's really helpful to understand your colour theory and to be able to mix and blend with what you've got. There we are. Let me just pop that little widget into there, because that is the seal, and if I don't, it'll leak every which way, which is a look, but not one I wish to have. There we are. So that can go over there, that can go over there, those can go there. Let's just move these about a little bit. There we are. There we are. Cool. So let's give those a little bit of a dry. They are permanent once they're dry, Julie, so they're good to use, and they shouldn't cause you lots of grief. Let me just grab that, because I don't want that run over there. Just give these a little bit of a dry. So now I've got a faded muted background with tones that I hope will work. A little bit of brightness from the ocean blue, which I'm fine with, but most of it is mellowed back down by mixing the colours. I can always come back and add some more after when I put my pieces on. So, but it's difficult to remove it at this stage, once it's dried. So you pull it back, add if you need to later on. But I now need these to be dry. I think it's just a really nice way, Jan, of making a background. So Helen, this is the Pentart page. It's their main page. I am one of the Pentart creatives. A lot of the lives here will be in Hungarian because Pentart is a Hungarian company. But several times a month there are, and usually at least once a week, there will be a live in English, so that it's easier for those who don't speak Hungarian to watch and understand. But the company is primarily it is Hungarian, so most of their viewers are Hungarian. So it's only right that the bulk of their lives are in Hungarian. But there are some Spanish lives for those of you who want to pick up on your Spanish, and there are English lives and also Greek lives. So lots of options depending on your language of choice. Because I want to layer things on here, you can't stick paper onto a wet surface and expect it not to crumple. Yeah, I just think that's all thing of that. And I will add colour down the sides, but I'm going to do that off. I will do that off there. I've actually kept them reasonably clean, so it wouldn't be a problem if I didn't. But it's, again, it's up to you and the look that you want. And I added quite a lot, of water to these, so it'll take a little bit for it to dry. I love it. I think that the colours are all very lovely in the medialness, and there's quite a lot of them to choose from, but they are all pigment rich. And just because it says it's a mist doesn't mean it has to be used as a mist. You can absolutely use it as a as a liquid watercolour if you want. I hope that means that hasn't broken. So there we are. Ugh, she says, with sticky, icky, mucky messes. Let me just move some of this copper out of the way. That one is, you can see where I've just touched that, where it's bubbled. So that clearly isn't dry. So just bear with, because we do need to get this dry. There we go. And now's the test, isn't it? Because I've cut out lots of bits and pieces, and I sort of know where I'm wanting them to go. And some of them, so let's see whether I can manage to actually get them where I want them to be. And remember the composition that I had. So I have used primarily pieces from the collectibles pad of paper for this, and I've just got some brown archival ink, and I'm deliberately using archival ink because it's permanent and isn't going, and therefore by its nature isn't going to move about if I do have them on anything that's slightly wet. So let me just ink around these edges. It'll also give these a little bit longer to dry. So that is going to go there and there. And I did, you know, I didn't do this up front. So let me see where we are. So I'm wanting that piece over there, that piece there. And I say these all come from the collectibles pad, and so that piece can go into there. Right, so that's where they're going. I'm going to, because this is reasonably flat, use the Pentacolor Express glue for this. It'll take a little bit of time to dry that, and I haven't got two, you know, masses and masses of texture. I've just enough for interest, and I find it easier to work. No, Helen, Dawn doesn't have them on her website. They're quite difficult to get in the UK. Watered down acrylic paints will work just as well, or keep an eye on the Create and Craft website, because they often come to air there. So that they can be picked up there, usually on a pick and mix, so you can choose your favourite colours. But otherwise, as I say, just use some liquid watercolours, or failing that, just add you know, dilute some acrylic paint and add that cautiously. And if you spray the surface with the acrylic paint, then it'll move and you can dilute it down quite nicely. Helen, there is never any such thing as a daft question, because if you don't know the answer, it's highly likely that others won't as well. And also, you know, you're never going to learn if you don't ask the question. So we have some extra bits. And this is why I was sort of, these are small canvases, which is why I decided I would make a couple of pieces this month. Just I was trying to see her dimensional glue. So and the joy of these is that they work in both directions. So I think I'm going to have to treat myself to a new ink pad, but hey ho. There we are. Okay. So let us just have a little bit of faffing around time. Because can I remember exactly how I had this lot? Can I, Ek? That's going there. That's going there. That piece is going to go there. That piece is going to go there. Excellent. Right. So now I want to start building some depth and some dimension to this. Now the birds aren't flat, are they? So I'm going to use a dimensional glue gel for this, because it's going to give me an instant grab and it's going to work better for me. You could use gel medium for this just as well, but there we are. But I think this is going to work reasonably well. So I'm just going to squiggle some of that down there. Squiggle being a technical word, of course. Pop that onto there, give that a little squash down, because I know that that's where I want that one, and leave that to grab. We'll add this one at the same time. Can go up there, and I'm going to pin that in place, and I'm going to use a gel medium for that piece, because it's going to work better than the other glues for adding that. Let me just see if I can straighten up that font a little bit. There we go. So we'll just pop a good wodge of that underneath there, and we'll want to pop that onto there. So I have big pieces here that I obviously want to add in, and I have my books. So let's get that up the correct way. So I want one there, one there, one there, and one that way. So my character is going to sit on top of that, but I have some other pieces that I wish to add in. So let me just position these where I want them, and then I can work out what I'm happy with and what I'm not happy with. So that is going to go underneath there, and that will come underneath there. So that is the plan for this piece. Okay, so, and that this is why it's not, it almost certainly isn't exactly how I planned it. Let's just rearrange that and see if that sits better. No, I liked it better that way around. So I'm just literally going to add these pieces as I go now. Happy that I know where I'm going. There's my express glue. And that can sit on there. Let's add a little bit more of this over there. Now, this glue is perfectly safe for you to put onto your hands, but it's not, yeah, but that's a risk that you take for yourself. So that's why I'm putting it onto my craft mat rather than dunking my hands into it. Well, we all start somewhere. She says, so that can go onto there. That can go onto there. So for me, this is about layering and detail and mixing my images and my colours. Eventually, I think you learn a style for yourself that works for you. I like using things like the gel mediums and the glue gels because they just allow lots of wriggle room, so I can change my mind if I want to, and that's something that is quite a useful activity to be able to do, because this will take a while to dry. I think it goes that way. I think it could, to be honest, go in either direction. So again, people are not straight and flat. So this is where I'm going to use my glue gel. Because it will allow me to pop this into place. So he's there with the owl popping out behind him, and he will settle. Let me just pop that into place. So I think he should be ready for adventure. So we can pop that there and that there, and that will work for me. Now, I've got quite a space underneath there, and of course boxes are flat, so that might cause me a bit of a headache, but I'm deliberately going to pop it into there like that, and my glue gel will hold it for me if I put a big enough blob, but you could support it just as easily with other things. And I can lift this up, or I can leave it flat and tucked underneath. And my preference is to tuck things underneath so that we don't have things, elements floating. So there we are. I'll pop that underneath there. And I have a little key to sit here. So that can be with some more of that. So I've just taken my elements from the paper collection and layered them in place on there. So that is canvas 1. So canvas 2 is built in a similar way, but it will give a different look because I'm using different iconography. But you'll recognise my thought process, I think, from doing this. So here I have the blue with the blue, and here I have the red, and I'm actually going to put corner, but I'm going to balance it down here just to be different for the two pieces. So, and we have some bits and pieces. Can't remember where I used that, so we'll worry about that one later on. So I want, so that is essentially the same base layout as I used for my opposite canvas, and I could do it actually that way round so it mirrors that, and why not, she says. So there we are. And in which case that will have to come up a little bit higher. There. And this one can come a little bit lower there. And just make sure that that is straight on the canvas. There we are. We'll pop that there. And make sure that that one is straight. And the joy of this is I've got some little bit of wriggle room, but not a lot with that glue. The express glue does set fairly quickly, as you might expect from its name. Now these are double-sided in the collectibles pad, so that is one side and this is the other, and I'm deliberately going with the more neutral background because that's my preferred look for this piece. But you could pick the busier side if that's what you wanted. So let's just pop that over there and tuck it in and under. Yeah. So, and I'm going to pop that underneath there whilst that glue is still wet. Because my focal pit imagery for this piece is actually this. So let us like this. Now I might want my bird to be lifted. But I want my books flat. So a lot of canvases come with these pieces. Now they're actually canvas stretchers, because if you do acrylic pouring or use oil pastels or things like that, then actually the canvases sag, and so the canvas stretchers are designed for you to stretch your canvas, as the name says, to make life easy. So I can have my books flat because I've used my canvas stretchers, and I can add a little bit of shaping to that. Yes, Faith, you can hear some bits. Sarah, you have to ask the powers that be as to whether when I'm going to do lives there. Sharon doesn't contact me to ask me to do them, and I'm often very busy, so it's not always that practical for me to say yes. So there we are. So those are on there. That can go there. I think I don't want 2 canvas risers on that. Having put 2 on, it's sitting more proud than I want it to, and that's going to look better for me. And so that's there. That's there. he's going to go there. But before we do that, she says, we have some of our book pieces to link in with our piece. So I think that's going to sit under, that might be why I originally thought I was going to use 2 risers. There we are. Let's just stick that back on there. So we want some of these pieces, and that is back to my good old friend, the gel medium, to do this. It is difficult because I do lives for so many people, for trying to balance everything and have a life is not always that easy. So for this week, I've done a live on crafting together with Allbrand. I've got the live here, which is cool. No problems with that. Now that needs to come in. And you can see, so Helen, you can see that the gel medium has allowed me to move that over because it hasn't grabbed in the same way as it would have if it was the express glue that I had used at that point. So for me, this is looking a little bit empty down here. I'm just going to add some of these book pieces from the collection. And I've got a few of these cut out so that they look like they're tucked underneath and over the top. And I do have another word as well, which I may choose to use or I may not, as the case may be. So that can go underneath there. Where's my other round? There we are. Let me just lift that squodgy bit off there, because why not? And I think, see, that's not going to fit nicely underneath there because it's too big, but it will sit onto there quite happily. So let's just add that and a squidge of hue, because that will help it set, and add. And I know that covers some of the book plates, but it is all about the layering and the putting stuff together and building layers and dimension that works. So he's going to sit down there. And I know there's a gap in here. So this piece currently looks like it's a bit orphaned, but actually by the time I add in my little owl, he's not going to look so orphaned. So let's just take the other owl from the chipboard set, and he can sit neatly onto there, flat on the canvas. And do I want to add anything else? I have one of the, I must have thought that this was needed at some point. So is that going to sit into there comfortably? And yes, it does. Does it look exactly how I had it the first time round? Almost certainly not. You just lift and play and move stuff about until you are happy with your composition. There we are. And that can go on. That over there, pop that over there. Now I'm conscious I've got some very white areas. I could just add some sprays and some splatters, and I might do that. I'll see how I feel later on. But I do have in from the collection, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted the backgrounds to be dry, some of the rub-ons. And so I think I can add some bits of text into this, and it's easier. They do transfer quite well. And just because it's piece doesn't mean you have to use it as a whole piece. So where have I got areas that I think could do with filling in? And I could use a stamp for doing this, but these are to pour. So let me just give this. Now, one of the headaches I think we might find is that my canvas is moving underneath. So Again, you need it to be, but these rub-ons just work really, really beautifully. So I think I might want a little bit up there. So it just allows me to add stuff in. I don't know quite when I'm going to use the little mice, but hey ho. There we are. So I'm just filling in some of the details, some of the areas that I just feel need a little bit more information. And you can see these, the rub-ons are going on with really quite minimal pressure and reasonably well. So we've got 1, 2, and we need a bit more down here. And out of that packet, you can see I've actually only used 1 image. And I want a little bit here. Now, quite how well this is going to adhere to the stenciling is a moot point. But we will try. And we will find out. There we are. So it adds quite nicely to there. Do I want some splatters? Yeah, I think I probably do. But let me come back to this one. So we have some more bits of text, and we have some swirly bits, and we have other words, and so I'm going to stick to the text that's on here. So I think you can see that by by chopping stuff up, actually 1 pack of rub-ons will last quite a long time. So that's going to sit up there. And all I'm doing is just adding. Is there a right and wrong way to do it? No, I don't think there is. If it works for you, that's the right way of doing it. If you like it, that's the right way of doing it. I really don't think there is anything that in this sort of activity that can be said to be truly right or truly wrong. I think it's about what looks good for you and what works for you. I mean, given that these canvases are not fully dry, these rub-ons are better. You know, I remember the days when rub-ons were, you know, brute force, lots of effort, real problematic activity for getting them actually to stick to your project. But these are going on nicely, so those will add to that. I just need that one to stick down a little bit. There we are. So we've got those, and we've got those. We've lidded that, we've lidded that. Just bear with while we lid this, because if you don't, I will have a real headache tomorrow with it gooped up and things. And there we are. Those are reasonably straight. Those are reasonably straight. I personally think it does need some splatters, and so I'm just going to take. Actually, what I'm going to do, I'd often gravitate to black, but I think black might be just a little harsh. So I'm just going to take some of my indigo blue, because this way I'm keeping to the colours that I already have on my project, and we will just water that down, and I will swap that to a splatter brush. So I tend to use a fan brush for my splatters, because and what this is doing is just filling in some of the areas that are a bit empty, but without adding bulk, and just adding a little bit of extra interest. But they also link, because they sit on each layer. You don't want them on the man's face, needless to say. Don't mind a problem on the hat, but don't want them on there. They link the layers together so that they look like a cohesive project, if that sort of makes sense. So that one. And I could add white, but really there's no white in my imagery. So I am going to add, I'm going to revert to my cream in the same process. Instead of using black and white, which would be the typical colours of splats. But really, you use what you want to use, and in the colours that you like, and that will sit with your project. And there's definitely is. You can have too many spatters. There is no doubt about it. And the reason I decided I would add the cream is that on the books, because they're so dark, the cream, the blue spatters weren't showing. And this does now work for me. There we are. So, ladies and gentlemen, we now have 2 canvases completed. During the course of the live, yes, I knew where I was going. Yes, I had cut out all my pieces, but I hope that you've enjoyed it, and that actually you can see that they don't take so long. And I can now put my 2 pieces offset either which way, next to each other, on a wall as I want to, and I can add some of my colours down the sides if I want to, but I now need to leave those to dry because of all the gel medium that I've added into that piece. So we've used modelling paste, media mist, acrylic paints, Umbra antique paste, wax on top, pigment fix, and some other pigment colours. So altogether a lot of products, but actually that's all in little bits that link together. So I wish you all a very good evening, and look forward to seeing any makes that you might make. Feel free to tag me, and I will see you probably next month on this page, but I have got lives next week, so if you just keep an eye out, you'll see when I'm live in other groups. And thank you, Wendy, for joining us. I haven't used any MDF today, but I have used my ever favourite collection that I know hopefully is winging its way for you. So, ladies and gentlemen, I will say goodbye and take care.